us now to discuss is a deputy director of the Christian Institute, Simon Calvert. Simon, I mean, this story is pretty unbelievable. Take us back to July of 2024 on this day and tell us exactly what played out here.
So Clive turned up with about 10 friends. He held an open-air gospel service, which, you know, in Northern Ireland, it's the most Christian part of the UK in terms of the number of Christians and the number of churches. And so the idea of churches going out and holding a service in the open air is kind of a cultural thing there. So he held this very small open-air service. He preached from John 3:16. Everybody knows John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. He shared his testimony. He sang a few hymns playing on a ukulele. That's all he did. He didn't say a single word about abortion. There were no abortion placards. He wasn't wearing an abortion pin. It was nothing to do with abortion. And yet the police and prosecutors there in Northern Ireland have decided they want to prosecute him for trying to influence somebody going into this abortion centre in the hospital where he was.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, to not even mention the word abortion, to not even be preaching about abortion, and yet to have this happen seems really egregious. Do you believe, Simon, that these charges violate Pastor Johnson's religious freedom?
Yeah, I do. I think his religious freedom, I think his freedom of speech are clearly being challenged by these laws. And it doesn't stack up. I mean, I sat next to Clive in court last week. The prosecutors, they didn't introduce any evidence that any woman heard or saw anything that he was doing. It came out in the evidence. It couldn't be any clearer now, really, that Clive is being prosecuted for preaching the gospel. It's as simple as that. So, yeah, we've brought in some of the best lawyers, and they'll be arguing in court that Clive's human rights are engaged. I think that this is a real test case, because if these laws, which we were told were designed to protect women from being harassed, can actually be used to shut down the preaching of the gospel that has nothing to do with abortion, we're in a very, very serious situation indeed. I mean, in a very real sense, you know, because this was nothing more than the preaching of John 3:16. In a very real sense, the Bible is on trial right now.
Wow. And you know what? For people who maybe haven't been following what's gone on in the UK, this is actually not a very unique situation. We've heard several stories out of the UK about censorship. What is going on over there? Can you explain to the American audience just how bad it really is?
So this is the first time anybody's been prosecuted under these abortion laws for preaching the gospel. There's been a couple of cases handled by our friends over at Alliance Defending Freedom that deal with silent prayer. I mean, I want to say that, of course, I think these buffer zones laws are bad laws, and I think they need looking at again. But I also want to say that when it comes to the law in the UK, broadly speaking, the law on free speech, you know, is pretty good. It's certainly better than it is in many parts of the world. The problem we have is primarily a cultural problem. There are police officers and there are prosecutors, and they seem to be trained somehow to think that there are just certain opinions that need to be stopped. And so they, I think, overinterpret and over-apply the law. We will have to see what the court does in Clive's case. It's a criminal prosecution. We can't predict what the judge is going to do when this case comes back in March. But you know, I think, well, I think a lot of people I just can see what's at stake here, and I think that we'll win. But, you know, it shouldn't have to come to this. He shouldn't have to be dragged through the courts.
Yeah.
There shouldn't be any risk of a man simply preaching John 3:16 being hauled up and prosecuted in this way.
Unbelievable. And, you know, we've also seen, it seems like a little thought policing going on in the UK and some problems with social media as well. So there's a lot to work out there, but we're certainly paying attention to this case. So, Simon Calvert, thanks for breaking it down for us today. We appreciate it.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.